Good
Click on
idea.
the- Okay. Okay, let's open up the meeting. We're gonna check and see if there are people in the audience that need to be on the panel.
Bob Stafford, so I'll promote him.
Why does that happen? How does that happen?
They just use the different link, not the panel link,
I see. I see. Okay.
just because there's a link for anyone to join.
We have a quorum.
Yep. So we've already started the recording.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Okay, all right, so we're reviewing applications this evening, so we'll start with
Bob,
Conscom. So the first one is the trust. So if we can promote that person to present,
at Salem.
it's Matt.
Well, I guess my audio is not, or my video is not working, but
Can hear you.
everybody can. Fantastic. Was the first application on the agenda? Sorry, I don't have them ordered.
Matt, just the land trust allocation.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So for the record, my name is Matt Salem. I'm the town's conservation resource planner. Attending with me is the chair of the Conservation Commission, Margaret Wheeler. I'm sure she's in the audience somewhere as well. The first application is, this is a fairly routine request to CPC to allocate funds for the acquisition of land. This in the amount of $190,000. These funds are used when acquiring land, such as this past fall when the town acquired 5 acres of the house and barn parcel up off of Sawmill Drive, adjacent to the Sawmill Conservation Area. In addition to the regular costs with acquisition in terms of surveying, baseline documentation, anything to appraisers, those are typically what these funds are used for. By having the funds previously appropriated, where the commission can act quickly and not have to wait for either to hold a special town meeting to request funds through the CPC or wait for a scheduled meeting. So it allows the commission and myself to be a little more quicker to react to inquiries and when people are looking to either sell their land to the town or in the case sometimes the commission will acquire a conservation restriction on a specific parcel. If you're happy to discuss any questions.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. That usually comes before us every year. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
Go ahead.
About this.
Yep.
Matt, hi, Robert Stafford. I just have a question. I'm just curious if you know of, in the future, any sort of big parcel items that might be coming up or any land that you guys are targeting. I'm just curious.
Yeah, there's currently, I'd say 2 that are more in the preliminary stages, but they've expressed interest to, in protecting the property. So, much like with the Saltbox Farm conservation restriction and when the town acquired the Adams Conservation Area between Lowell Road and Main Street, there was an additional application, as those were certainly substantial amounts that couldn't be handled kind of under the of this trust fund. But we are actively pursuing them. I'm always open when people inquire, and Westford has a great history of value in protecting its natural open spaces, and this fund and these appropriations go a long way into acquiring them and protecting them.
Thank you.
Okay, and Matt, do you know what the balance is currently? We usually ask that.
Yep, I think we're in the vicinity of $1 million. I know there is one for, if either of the two kind of in preliminary discussions, acquisitions or acquiring the conservation restrictions on either of the two, that would certainly be significantly depleted. But we do have enough right now to kind of pursue both concurrently with the funds that have been previously appropriated.
So just to be clear, so the trust does have $1 million on hand?
Yes, I
Around
think the
$1
fund
million.
has $1 million on hand,
Okay.
or thereabouts.
Yep, thank you. Anyone else? It's pretty straightforward. Comes before us every year. Okay, seeing nobody interested in additional questions. All right, is that one. Now let's move on to the next one, which is the $85,000 for the Conservation Commission. Is this CR?
Yeah, conservation restriction and management plan.
Yeah. So if you want to
So-
present that one.
Yes, I certainly will. Again, members of the committee, Matt Salem, Conservation Resource Planner. In terms of, the town has acquired and protected over 2,300 acres of land throughout town. And the usage of these conservation lands are as diverse as the habitats with which they're protecting. There are park areas on, there are more developed park areas such as Freedom Park on Pond Street and abutting Fort Pond, managed areas such as the Stony Brook Conservation Area and the Grassy Pond Conservation Area, and natural areas with trails such as the House and Barn and Sawmill Conservation Areas. And there's again numerous of these properties that are scattered throughout town under the care and custody of the commission. In addition to that, there are 55 conservation restrictions in which have been granted to the town and commission, totaling approximately another 1,500 acres. Most of these are protected areas of woodlands adjacent to subdivisions, as they were protected through that through the subdivision process with the planning board. And these are critical to wildlife habitat, water quality protection, and furthering climate resiliency, attenuating significant rain events, sequestering atmospheric carbon, and limiting the effect of urban heat islands. Recently, we've, through the commission, wanted to hire a consultant to inventory, assess, and provide management recommendations in a report to document how our properties are being used and how, what additional steps may need to, the commission may need to start considering to maintain them as, in their natural open spaces. And, the goal is to have, the consultant visit the various properties, varying days throughout the week, so it's not all just during work hours when sometimes, it may be, properties may be being less used, have stop, assess on the weekends, assess, throughout the year, again, how a property is being used in the winter time is certainly different than summertime when school's out. One additional component of this is to identify any invasive species, so that can be documented and we can start to manage and curtail invasive species on the Conservation Commission's parcels, so that they're not a point source for further spreading of invasive species. I anticipate this being about a 2-year project. And, in the end of it, certainly the goal would be to, have the report to act on and direct the town's, the departments and the commission's management activities to ensure that they stay, in fantastic condition.
Matt, how many acres do we have again?
The Conservation Commission has under its care and custody approximately 2,300 acres. 55 conservation restrictions granted to the town, total approximately another 1,500 acres.
Well, okay, but nobody has time to visit.
It's a big town.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I have a quick question in terms of, I wanted to know what the balance was because, we have a lot of applications this year, so I was wondering if there's any consideration thought for this in the open space plan that you could use some of what you have in the trust to fund these. So has there been any talk of that?
I don't think we're allowed to.
Jesse, I would defer to you if you're still listening. I certainly would entertain it. I did listen to the committee's previous meeting from last week. I haven't, as the commission is meeting tomorrow night, I'd be more than happy to discuss with them to see if there are, some matching funds, $9,000, $10,000 from, receipts from the various wetland applications. See if there is some matching funds. I certainly appreciate the committee's position, and having a matching component. Certainly, I could discuss with the commission and follow back up with the committee.
Yeah, I think we need to research the language of the trust so that we know, because I know it does more than just buy land. You can use it for surveying and paying people and whatever. So I don't know if this is something that qualifies or not. So I think we need to make a note to research that. Anybody else have any questions on this one? Any comments? Okay, seeing none, these are all pretty straightforward, as we've said. Okay, so the next one is the open space plan, $50,000 request.
Yes, so this request is to update the open space and recreation plan. It was last approved in 2017. It expires in 2025. And my goal, I did receive a letter of support from the Parks and Recreation Commission. Attended their first meeting this month. That was included in the application. The open space and recreation plan first was prepared in 1979. It's been regularly updated. It directs active and passive recreation toward appropriate lands and is critical in the town's ongoing efforts to protect its natural resources. And it does continue on to discuss playing fields, which I know is something of is always of concern with Westford and its population. These approved open space and recreation plans are a prerequisite for eligibility for certain state grants. So, making sure that we're eligible for DCR and other grants, DCR, DEP, they're certainly valuable. Additionally, they also do identify, the input from the residents, and they hold the public hearings, public discussions, and receive impact from residents and the interested commissions. So acquisitions can be targeted. Circling back to the house and barn parcel, I think that was identified on the open space and recreation plan dating back to the early 2000s. So 20 years later, I'm excited to update this OSRP and take that off of the potential for conservation. This is a timely request as the select board and town manager are preparing their a strategic plan in advance of updating the town's comprehensive master plan in the upcoming years. So having this completed, as the chair mentioned, tying in, kind of the Conservation Commission management, the Conservation Commission management plan certainly does have a symbiotic advancing, but this again is town-wide. So, there certainly are water department properties and land owned by other entities that wouldn't be evaluated in the Conservation Commission land management plan. If there's any questions, be happy to answer.
Yeah, so Matt, you said it expires in 25. Is that at the
Yes.
end of the calendar year or
August.
in August? Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Comments? Okay, all right, moving on. Is there someone here for the first parish?
There was, Madam Chair, there was one more request, the O'Brien Farm Public Footbridge supplemental
Oh,
funding.
okay, you want to do that? Okay, I had that in the other one. Okay, go ahead.
And this request originally came before the conservation or before the committee 3 years ago, I think in 2021. It was to construct a public footbridge connecting the two sides of the O'Brien Farm footbridge. The town co-holds a conservation restriction with the Sudbury Valley trustees, protecting its agricultural and natural spaces. Originally, the estimate for the cost of work was somewhere in the $40,000 range. We recently, this past year, went out to bid, soliciting requests for proposals. The responses to that RFP process ranged from 63,000 to 96,000. And then there was an outlier of $350,000, but we kind of threw that one. That wasn't that wasn't seriously considered. It was just received and in the process, in the table. These bids were in excess of the appropriated amount plus the Mass Trails grant. The Mass Trails grant was valid through the end of 2023. That's why it's certainly the request is in excess of what was previously discussed at the needs assessment meeting, and a design by a structural engineer and approval from the Conservation Commission and the Mass Department of Environmental Protection was granted via an order of conditions. And happy to one comment from the committee's last meeting, discussing signage on structures, signage on projects, acknowledging that funds were appropriated via the Community Preservation Act. That was actually the Mass Trails grant required a similar sign be affixed to the structure. So certainly something that after hearing the committee's discussion, I was considering, and I certainly support including in this project pending a favorable recommendation.
Okay, now I hadn't really reviewed this because I didn't really have this on the agenda, but I know because you're here, we'll do it, and that makes sense. I just wanted to double check a couple of things on the application. Did anyone else have any questions on this one, or?
I do.
No, we
How
Go
much,
ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand. How much are we asking? Is he asking for the O'Brien parcel? I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, 60,000.
Oh, 60,000, okay.
Yeah, 60,000. Sorry, I forgot to.
So just a question, is that, I mean, you've gotten money before, right? And there's additional money coming from the state.
Yes.
Is this 60 and those two as well? Or is this?
So the Mass
Right.
Trails grant was only valid for 2 years. Typically they're actually only valid for 1 year, but we received federal funding, and then as contractors, the RFP process and contractors were difficult to secure and proceed with the project. We, kind of to the drawing board in September or October, and thought requesting additional funds from CPC would be. So this $60,000 is in addition to the previously appropriated amount by CPC. I forget. I think it was
37,000?
yeah, somewhere. I was going to say 40, in that ballpark.
Okay.
And in discussing with the property owner and the Sudbury Valley trustees representative, there is a limit for what a board, the discussions have always circled back to is there a limit for how much a boardwalk can, should cost? And if, because certainly financial times are tight. It's not a, we want to be fiscally responsible as well,
Right, yeah.
in the administration and, progressing this project.
So there's no
That's-
opportunity to go back to the state? I'm sorry. And get
Yeah,
additional-
that's what I was gonna- go ahead.
It would go back through an entirely new Mass Trails grant funding round. And in conversations with their representative for, I forget the gentleman's title, it would be more, I think it's a more competitive funding cycle, and they don't have the previously appropriated or the previous federal funds to use in addition to it.
Thank you.
So has there been any discussion of approaching, Rep Arciero and seeing if there's state money at all, or? Because this is kind of an amenity, right? In other words, we've done the trail and whatever, and now this is to connect two pieces,
Yep, this is
to make
connecting
it
to.
easier, yeah.
Yeah, right now the parking lot for the conservation restriction parcel is on the southwest side of Pond Brook. The larger parcel with the trails is on the other side. And right now, people who park at the parking area on the southwest side of the brook have to walk down Old Vose Road to the 90-degree corner. That portion of Old Vose Road, yeah, or Vose Road, not Old Vose Road,
Yes.
is dirt, and there's barely enough passage clearance for two vehicles. So it was to be done as a it was to improve the safety and access for visitors to the property.
Anybody else have any comments or any other questions on that? I don't know if people recall what we've done before with the trail there. O'Brien property, but. Okay, seeing none. Okay, I'll put that aside now. So that was gonna be for next week, but that's done now. Okay. So now, how about the first parish? Someone here to present on the first parish plan? 89,000.
Jess, it
Yes.
looks like oh, she's got
Yep.
them, it looks like.
Hi.
Good evening.
I am doing June Kennedy's oral histories, not the comprehensive.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Should I go
Either-
with the oral histories?
Yeah, that's fine. We'll just take that one now if you're there.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So I am Leslie Howard. I'm president of the Westford Historical Society.
Yeah.
And we have a collection of June Kennedy's oral histories. She conducted them in the 1970s of some of the town's residents that were alive back in the early 1900s. They are really terrific interviews, and she transcribed them, and they're actually one of her books. It's called Westford Recollections of Days Gone By. And the problem now is that they are still on their original reels and tapes. And technology is advancing so much that soon we won't be able to access them in their original form. So what we'd like to do is digitize them and get them up with better technology using the Northeast Document Conservation Center. And then along with that, she also conducted interviews of some of the Parkerville Schoolhouse students. They gathered together for a reunion, I believe, back in the 1980s. And so we have those on tapes. And we would like to get those brought up to the latest technological advances so that we can keep them going and that we can listen to them. Time really is the worst thing for tapes like this. We had them assess the reels and they're in good to fair condition. And so time is really of the essence to get those preserved. To me, these interviews epitomize Westford because they are the firsthand history that we have here. And I really see opportunities to make these accessible to everyone and create more accessibility, but also incorporating them into the school curriculum, particularly the Parkerville ones. We can find ways to incorporate audio into the third grade student tours. And with the additional upcoming 300th anniversary of the town in 2029, and then the 100th anniversary of Parkerville, also the same year, of it closing, the last class being there. I think that it's really important that we get these digitized and save this history, and incorporate it into celebrations, and programming for both institutions. So, yeah.
Sounds good. I have the book. It's awesome. A lot
Yes.
of those folks, and they've
So do
moved
I.
on, so it's nice that, you know, we can modernize this, so. Anybody have any comments or questions on it?
What was the amount of money for that?
4,208,
200.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
very small amount,
Yep, I got it.
but very important project, I think.
I have all
And I
those,
didn't realize the Parkerville school, so that's great to add that.
Mhm.
I have those books on my shelf.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, they're really
Pictures are great.
And the voices to go with the, if you're
Right.
reading it, you know, like Marion Winnick apparently has this wonderful voice, and so to be able to hear her tell the stories, I think it's really great.
Yeah.
So,
That's nice. A worthy project.
thank you.
Anybody have any other questions or comments on that? Okay, it's pretty self-explanatory too. All right, thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Sure.
Okay. So next, let's go to the first parish. There's someone there?
Oh, sorry. Could, the Westford Museum accessibility, did you?
Oh, okay, yeah, we can do that one. That's on the agenda
Sorry.
for tonight. Yeah, go ahead.
So Leslie Howard again from the Westford Historical Society and Museum. We are seeking funding of $30,000 to conduct an accessibility study on our building. The building is at 2 Boston Road. If you're not familiar with it, it's the original Westford Academy. It is a town-owned building, and the Historical Society just operates within it. It was built in 1794, back when George Washington was president. So it is an old building, and it has its little quirks to it. But what we would like to do is to make it accessible to everyone. Right now we have a handicap ramp going on the outside of the building, but there is no accessibility to the second floor. We also have a bathroom inside, but it is not handicap accessible either. It's in sort of the front foyer of the area. So we have an idea to put a lift on the exterior of the building and also move the bathroom to the other side of the building, and make it truly accessible for everyone. So that we can have everyone there welcomed and safely in there. It is a town-owned building and it is not accessible, so it's really important us to be accessible. And additionally, we used to host the third grade students as part of their curriculum coming to the museum to learn about Westford's history. But we have been told that since the museum is not accessible to all, they cannot bring the school children here, and that's disappointing to us. And so that makes it even more important to us to be able to welcome everyone and anyone who can do this. This includes an aging population, but also mothers with strollers and anyone in a wheelchair or anyone who just wants an easier way up to the second floor. We want to start this process now because if everything works out well, then we can tie this construction in with the construction of Boston Road, which we anticipate the museum having to close for a short period of time due to the construction on that end of Boston Road. And so if we could tie this project in with that, then we won't have to close two separate times. We can sort of lump it all into one area. And again, with the upcoming anniversary of the town in 2029, it would be really great to be able to welcome everyone. And then the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution is coming up and underway, programming for that. So it would be really great to be able to celebrate those anniversaries with a truly accessible museum.
Okay, so that ask is 30,000, and that's just for the planning for the accessibility,
That
correct?
is for, right, it's for an accessibility study to make
Right.
sure that we can even do this to the building. We
Right.
have had Henry Fontaine came in, Jeff Goodwin came in, we've had the Permanent Town Building Committee come and look at the building. They have their support, but there are a lot of variables that will come into play with it to see if this can even be done to the building.
Right. Anybody have any other comments or questions? It's for a study. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I think we're finally at the first parish plan. Is there someone here for that?
Yes.
Okay, hello.
Hi, hello. I'm Martha Kennedy, and I am related to June. I will let you know that up front. But anyway, I am delighted to be able to present before you this evening. I've been on the First Parish Church Property Committee for the last year and a half. And as we've been undertaking our regular maintenance, we really have been concerned, obviously, and a lot of people have noticed the clock. Well, the clock was just one piece of some early consulting over the summer, where we discovered not just that the clock itself needs attention, both mechanically and the appearance of it on the three clock faces, but the actual bell tower and the structure above the belfry, which would be the steeple, has some significant concerns with rot, and why we are not using the bell or the clock, because we really are concerned and worried that without a true structural assessment of that structure, we really don't want to have anything happen with a 230-year-old building. So that led us to our further study. So we also have looked from foundation up, and it is an old building. As we all know, it was built in 1794. It was turned in 1868. It used to face Canal Drive. It was then turned to face Main Street. That project obviously was its own massive undertaking. And in the century plus since, the church needs attention in a way that we are only now really understanding as we dig into the various layers. The meeting house is our main focus in this particular conditions assessment, but we also wish to include the full church complex, and the reasons for that are the connector and the fellowship hall are connected to the meeting house. They provide access to the meeting house for ADA, and the infrastructure within the entire church complex is connected both from old to new. And that also has raised concerns and issues, because we discovered we are actually on two different electrical feeds through the town of Westford because of the way the meeting house and the fellowship hall are arranged, and electrical service comes into the town of Westford. So the infrastructure is a key part as well, because we also were thinking about sustainability. How do we maintain an historic meeting house along with community needs in the 21st century? As many of you know, the fellowship hall and the church host many organizations, including youth organizations such as 4-H, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. We also host a weekly AA meeting and the Red Cross blood drives. In addition to that, we're able to offer that space for many of those organizations without cost. And the fellowship hall provides us with funding that's critical to run and maintain the church through the use of rental fees for that space for outside organizations or any community, any use of, say, a wedding with a reception, those types of things. So that is part of our revenue funding. Let's see. One piece that this conditions assessment would provide us with, something that we do not have anywhere in the church records, would be drawings of the meeting house to have a better understanding of how that structure was built, how it is standing up, and how it is part of the entire complex where now the connector is attached to it to enable access to the second floor into the sanctuary. So it is a complex project, and we really want to do it right and do it well. And we feel to have a good understanding of our whole facility, we really want a professional conditions assessment to take place first, so we then can prioritize and focus key to making the structure safe and also standing for another century or more, and also continuing to serve the needs of the community as in addition to the needs of First Parish Church as a church.
And what's your ask?
Our ask for the complete complex is $89,400.
Okay, thank
So
you.
that would be a full conditions assessment, infrastructure, structure of meeting house, connector, fellowship hall.
I noticed also in your application, it says you anticipate coming back next year looking for more money for the actual work to be done.
Correct. That is correct. So this would give us the baseline of what those major projects would be. And as I said, our key focus will be on safety and structural integrity. We have already been researching many other grants for historic preservation, both for religious structures as well as a lead from the Westford Historic Commission, who came and toured our building about 2 weeks ago through the Massachusetts Preservation Projects Fund. And I know I also am looking at the Community Preservation Coalition, which has religious buildings of historic significance within their funding as well, and also National Fund for Sacred Places. We also anticipate we would do major fundraising in our church to help support, as we did for the connector project in 2010, where we would be also actively raising funds to help with the funding. And do realize that this would be a considerable undertaking.
Correct.
Okay.
And thank you. Your application is quite comprehensive.
Thank
So I
you.
did want to commend you on that. It really covers
Yeah.
it all, the history, all the photos and all that. And I know we had funded archive money. We've done that in the past for the First Parish, small, but project, but still, because, focused on the history, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, and we are eagerly anticipating the Westford House Tour, so we will be opening our doors for that. But we also would like to be able to offer the community a chance to really get a look at our church. And one of our concerns now is when going into that bell tower is not as easy to do anymore in the mind, knowing that we do have some serious things to really be sure to take a look at. So that is one of the primary concerns we have. Also, with our neighbors beginning construction at the J.V. Fletcher Library, that is another piece that is on our minds.
Right. Yeah, there's a few
I have-
big projects coming down the pike. Anyone have questions and comments?
Yeah, I have just a question,
Go ahead.
Martha. I'm assuming you do because we funded, I remember the other project, but do you all have a historic preservation or restriction on the building, correct?
I don't know what I know the meeting house itself is on the historic register, or the register of historic buildings. I do know that. I do not know what the deed restrictions are. That is something I need to research. I do not know that off the top of my head.
Yeah, just reading some of the funding that we do for religious institutions and semi-private institutions, they do like to have that deed restriction or historical restriction if we give
Mhm.
money. So, and it might have already happened. I don't know, but
Okay,
I think that's something that they would want us to look for.
Okay,
Right.
I'm happy to research that and confirm yes or no. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
yeah, that would be part of a requisite for the project anyway, any of these historic buildings, so that kind of goes hand in hand.
Having that in place, just to note too, would really streamline the the CPA grant agreement and everything
Right.
too. So that would be a great
Correct.
piece to have.
Okay.
Anybody have any other questions, comments on that? It's a big project, but important part of the history. Okay, hearing none, I think we'll move to new business, which is, we'll do the project, the next meeting. If I make this recommendation, I didn't have the O'Brien on this week, so now we've done that, so I think
Thank
for
you
next
so
week.
much.
Yeah, thank you, sorry, thank you so much. So if,
Thank you.
if we, for next week, I'm guessing we should maybe do Nabnasset Playground, Paris Center for the Arts, the Rhodey tennis courts, Frost Rhodey tennis courts, and the Stony Brook Ask. Does that work for people? That way, you know, you can look ahead, have all your questions or research done on it, and then we'll do those big ones at the next meeting, that subsequent meeting. Because that's gonna be a big to-do.
Gonna
It's
be,
my guess. Does that work for people that line up for next week?
yeah,
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. Anyone have any other suggestions on what changes on any of that? Hearing
No.
none? Yeah, okay. All righty.
Before we finish,
Yep.
we had gotten a note from Ellen Hardy.
Yep.
I don't know if you wanted to mention to the people who are applying.
Right. Yeah, her recommendation is that people realize that there are these, you know, historic agreements or you know, CRs and conservation restriction things of that time, and it can take some time to have those permits work through, and because they have to go before the selectmen. And the other thing she wanted people to be reminded of is that this is a reimbursement model. In other words, you don't get all the money up front, which I think is because she's experiencing this, having done her project, doing her project. So people need to know that, you know, you submit the bills and then that's how the money gets paid.
Reimbursed.
Yeah. Yeah. So in case folks need to be aware of that. Anything else? Anybody, any other new business or any questions? Till we move on to the next bunch of applications, which we have a lot of.
Yeah, Tony, just one question on.
Yep.
I know we got a lot next week, so then we would do that, and then we would anticipate another meeting. I guess I'm just trying to look for when do we sort of understand the financial situation and how we would even.
Yeah,
if we
how
decide-
how we usually handle that is, which I had talked to Jesse about, we usually go through all of the applications and you know, kind of go through them all. And then once everyone's presented, then we'll bring in, sometimes it's just Jesse, or this year there's, you know, a lot more financial complications, as we all know. So I don't know who else we maybe hear from. And, you know, some people want to know more about the bonding history and what we have available in that. So we would do that, not this next meeting, but probably at the end of the second meeting. And so people, before we vote, we'll have all the information as to financially what we can and cannot do. That's why, you know, I asked some people, like the conservation thing, you know, if they, since they already have money in the bank, you know, and some of these, all these projects seem to say, you know, they want to commence like, you know, the spring of 24. You know, maybe there's flexibility and latitude there that, you know, some can be held off for another year. But, you know, that's all going to be the will of the committee, how we vote. And so, in general, you know, that's sort of my schema, which that's traditionally what we do. So if there are people who have issues with that or want to make some changes or whatever, comments, let me know. Does that work for people?
Yeah, can I just say something?
Yep.
This is the first year, Bob, this is the first year that we've ever been in the position that we're in now, which is that there are so many projects that can't be funded elsewhere. There are the regular projects that we've heard tonight that always came before us. And we're also going to be presented with projects that we never would have been presented with before. And so I think we'll all have to do a lot of soul searching. And I think we'll have to do a lot of prioritizing. And there'll be some things we can do, and there'll be some things we cannot do. And in order to keep the integrity of this committee, I think we'll have, we'll have to maybe have more than 1 or 2 meetings that deal financially with what we're going to do, because obviously we cannot do everything that's being presented before us. And there'll be lots of discussion. As far as I could see, I think the finances are going to take more than 1 meeting for us to talk about before we vote. This is the first time in 23 years, and I've sat on this board for 23 years. This is the first time I've seen this situation like this.
Yeah, no, I
We're
agree.
all aware.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I know Jesse, and I'm sure Dan as well, will explain the bonding, how that affects it, everything, that's just, before I vote, I just want to understand. I'm sure we all
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
So I know it'll take
Also-
place. I'm just curious as how
We
we're
also
fitting.
wanna know-
Sounds fine to me.
We also want to know what we will never be able to do if we do everything. And
Exactly.
we might make some choices that are different than other people might make because we don't want to put ourselves in that position. So we have a lot.
That's why I asked about potential land purchase, what's coming down the pike. to understand.
Exactly. That's a good question to know what's what. Yeah. Okay, anybody have any other questions or comments? Before we resume next week? And
Okay,
thank you all for your time and patience.
thank you very much.
All
Thank
righty.
you.
Good night,
Thank you.
all.
Well,
Yeah, good
good
night.
night.
See
Have
you
a great
next
weekend.
week.
Oh, yeah.
Good night.
Okay.
Take care.
Oh, wait, we're gonna
Oh, we gotta
adjourn.
adjourn.
My motion to
Oh.
adjourn.
Do you want the minutes, Tootie? Do you want to do the minutes first
Sure, I
from
didn't,
last week?
yeah,
Did
sure, I
everybody get
haven't.
a chance to look at them, or?
Because I didn't get an agenda.
All
Yeah,
right,
neither.
we can save them and just do
Yeah,
both
let's
of them
save them,
next week.
so
Then
people have a
that's
chance
fine.
to review.
why don't we do both of them next week?
Yeah, that's good. Okay,
Yeah.
so motion to adjourn,
I make the motion.
second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand. Aye,
Aye.
aye, aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we're done. Thank you so much for all your time and attention.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night, all.
Take care.
Good night.